Greg here. So we're back with Jeff.
We're just here with a quick market update today, and the big question on everyone's minds is why was the federal funds rate decreased by half instead of a quarter?
We had a bigger rate cut than we were expecting, but interest rates for 30-year fixed mortgages actually didn't go down. What's the story there?
Well, the rate that was cut was the federal funds rate, which is the overnight rate that banks lend money to one another, and that trickles down to impact things like consumer items like credit cards, home equity lines. Of course, everybody knows that when the federal funds rate is cut by a half, that doesn't mean mortgage rates went down by 0.5%, but they do trend in a similar direction. So some were surprised at the 0.5% cut. For a long time, they were saying it was going to be 0.25%, and I think we said in our last video, you're not going to see mortgage rates change dramatically because it's already baked in. The market already knew that was going to happen, so the rates had already adjusted to that level, and they've held in a pretty narrow range since the federal cut last week. So the question is, why the half instead of a quarter?
Yeah.
And as we dig more into the numbers, there's a term, the hiring rate has dropped below 3.5%, and the hiring rate anticipates perhaps more unemployment than they were anticipating even with the 0.25%. So as the Federal Reserve is trying to cut inflation and yet keep jobs, the old safe landing they've been talking about, the 0.5% cut had to do with their concern about employment numbers in the future.
Would you say that the fact that it's half kind of indicates that the economy is weaker than even the Fed forecasted?
Well, it's slowing, yes, and there's talk of perhaps 2 more quarter-point cuts before the end of the year, and there's only 1 quarter left in the year. So, yes, there is the thinking that things are slowing down. One bit of trivia is I looked, and everybody was saying, well, they've made all these increases. The prime went from the 3s to 8.5.
Yeah.
And when is this gonna start to kick in?
Right.
And the research I did said that it takes 18 months from the first initial quarter-point increase to be seen on the consumer level in the retail, just people buying and just people just living their lives buying stuff. 18 months. Well, there's been a number of these increases, and in hindsight, historically, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 more cuts than they actually needed to do in hindsight, but there's no way to know that until employment has been strong until just very recently.
So let me ask you this. If you ever seen a cruise ship dock, right, there's this massive thing, they have to make these giant adjustments in the engines that have these giant lag effects. If they want to turn
they got to start
in a half a mile, they got to start the turn now.
Sure.
This is great news, not for today. I know for my clients who want to buy today, it's not great news, but it's great news for 3 months from now, 6 months from now, because it kind of indicates the state of the economy, which obviously a weaker economy means maybe they can lower the rate sooner.
Yes.
So I've been saying it's great for 3 months. Would you adjust that analogy, or do you like?
Well, I have several thoughts on that. Yes, a slowing economy means lower mortgage rates. Yes, always, consistently. The question is, will the Fed cut fast enough? But if they cut too fast, then inflation comes back. And it's a very delicate thing to balance. But I do like your cruise ship analogy because it takes a long time for that ship to turn, the ship of the U.S. economy. What I've been telling people for 2 years, since I think last time we mentioned November 2022. Yeah, it's been a while ago now.
Yeah.
That rates took such a huge leap. And I've been telling people, if you can afford it, buy now and secure the price of the home, because the further rates go down, the more demand there's going to be on our limited inventory, and there's going to be lots of competition, which will drive up the prices. So again, the call to action is, if you can buy now, rates in the low 6s, FHAs in the high 5s, and you can afford that, then if rates continue to drive lower, then we'll refinance in a year or two.
It's funny about the cruise ship analogy is when rates started going up dramatically in 2022, a lot of real estate agents and consumers too, but they're like, the market didn't shut off overnight. It's the same analogy in reverse. When they started jacking up the rate, people were still buying and selling at the same velocity. But what happened is it's just like a jetliner. When you lose enough speed of a jetliner, it stalls and it becomes a catastrophic thing. One of the questions I wanted to ask you about, and I saw this the last time that the Fed cut this severely was in Q4 of 2007.
Wow.
Obviously, right before the market kind of...
Yes.
And
yes, that's
coincidence?
I have all this gray hair.
That's right. So I thought, could you speak to that? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, again, the challenge is, I think the economy is not nearly as bad a shape as it was in 2007, 2008. Lending standards have tightened up quite a bit. There's not going to be, the inventory is far less than it was. Nationwide, we're 4 to 5 million units short of single-family homes. Housing is going to remain strong, I believe, because of the supply and demand issue. So they've got a difficult job to try to... back to your airplane analogy, land the plane smoothly instead of it dropping out of the sky.
Yeah.
So too aggressive with cuts can cause problems, and too slow obviously can cause problems as well. But if there is a mild recession coming, I believe it's not going to be anywhere near as severe as the 2008, because for one thing, housing is going to remain stable. The last I've been hearing and reading and seeing from various sources is the thinking is rates could be drifting down into the low sixes, perhaps 5.5s through winter of 24 into spring of 25. That's the latest prediction. Now, I'm not going to bet my life on it, but that's what I'm hearing.
We all wish we could go back. I know I wish I could go back in time and buy more real estate in 2010, 2011. But the reality is, when the market is scared, it's hard to be bold, right? Because you don't know. No one knew where the bottom is. It's only in hindsight that you can say, "Oh, I see the bottom. I wish I could buy." If the market is, let's say next quarter, the market is significantly different than it is today. Well, there are pros and cons of today's market, and there will be pros and cons of a market in let's say December of this year. Mm-hmm. And you pointed out earlier, if rates come down to 6, like hooray,
right?
But there are cons too, and you mentioned
it. Go up.
Right, yeah. You mentioned the competition.
Yeah,
real estate is a long game. Mm-hmm. My goal, and I'm assuming your goal is very similar. Our goal is to get people in the houses, not so that they can time the market.
Right.
If you want to time the market, get into crypto, right?
Right. Yes.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Buy securities or something. But my goal is to get people in real estate because it's an
appreciating asset.
Appreciating asset. It's a hedge against inflation. Our government's printing money. The goal to get them is not to try and time the market. My in-laws, they bought their first house in Portland in the 1980s for $24,000, and I said, look, we all look at that and we're like, we'd all love to pay $24,000 for a house.
And the minimum wage was a nickel back then.
But you don't realize that a starter home, as of this recording, in Portland is what, $450?
Easy, yeah.
That's going to be that equivalent of $24,000 in 30 years from now. Mm-hmm. That we're going to tell our grandkids, you could buy a house less than $1 million, less than $5 million. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of inflation.
And the perfect timing, yeah.
It's perfect time. Yeah. That's the goal is not, if you time the market and you get lucky, it's bonus, right?
I remember in 2008, people would say, man, I got a great deal, and before 2008, when the prices were running up. We bought it in 2000, 2001, and properties were appreciating 14% a year.
Yeah.
And I think, man, I'm a real estate genius. And then 2008 to 2009, when property lost half its value, they go to the realtor and say, why'd you make me buy this place?
Well, exactly. And I know 2 people, anecdotally, who bought the worst possible time in 2007, but they rode it out. Because it's long-term play, that they lived in that property for 8, 12 years, that they won because it was a long-term play.
Yeah. Over time, real estate appreciates.
That's right. That's right.
And then all the intangibles of real estate, like being able to decorate the home you want, having a garden, having a pet, putting down roots, getting invested in your neighborhood and your kids' schools. Those are all aspects of home ownership that no matter when you time it, those are things that you just in hindsight are really grateful
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah. All right. This is a great update. We'll see you guys in sometime in October or November. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks.